Okay, so we are going to talk about one of the more challenging things to do in EMSE, which is to get data out of the program. We're going to start by opening up a workspace. I'm going to go with the main one here and collapse all the projects. I just do that out of habit. I don't like looking at all of them. Okay, to get data out, you're going to go to batch, peak, and area measures. Okay, so in peak and area measures, you're going to have a couple of different options for getting different any kind of data out of the program. You have options for time domain and frequency domain. Frequency domain is what we would use for resting EEG. Time domain is what we are going to use for event-related components. So we'll do our example with the time domain. Sometimes this can be a little bit slow, especially when you have a bigger workspace. I find that it sometimes has trouble thinking through this. I think it's going to actually do it even though it's not responding. Not going to give up just yet. There we go. Look at that. Okay, so it'll take you to this screen where you're going to select what you want to take out. So each person in our oddball task is going to look something like this. You'll see their ID number, and then you're going to see, the 4 different conditions. And you'll see that for all the participants so far. They need to have the same name structure. I've had some problems when they don't. You're going to have to, there's no select all button. Yeah, it's a little inconvenient. So you got to go through, you can use the space bar and the arrow keys. I'm actually, you'll notice I'm not clicking. Using the space bar and the arrow keys. And of course, you want to have a list of IDs prepared for ones that you're going to actually want to take out. Just because you see ID number and file here, a file name doesn't actually mean that you want to use it. There could be 0 trials in there. So I want to take out a bunch though, just to be able to show some of the issues that can come up. What actually gets generated from using the peak and area measures batch is a text file. And that text file is not really usable or easily read by any other kind of program. And so you're actually going to then put that text file back through another one of EMSE's utilities. It doesn't always work right. And that's because if there's something wrong in the text file, as you'll see later, EMSE won't be able to read it. So even though EMSE has made the file, sometimes there are things that are in there that make it so that it breaks down. And that has to do with issues that we have made with the way in which data is collected and then processed and maintained in the program. So yes, it's a frustrating thing that EMSE can't read its own file, but it's also kind of on us that we didn't do certain things correctly at various points in time. The main thing that I see as causing a problem, although this is not always the case, but the main thing that I see is that there's not an equal number of channels in all the files. So you might be wondering how that can happen. Well, it might happen if you forget to attach certain electrodes, but it also might happen if a kid refuses certain things. For instance, there's not going to necessarily be a heart rate, EX number 7, if we didn't actually put that on the child. If we made a mistake and we didn't actually save some of the auxiliary data like respiration and skin conductance when we were originally acquiring the data, there could be a problem there as well. So because some will have skin conductance and so on. Okay, at this point, I think I've gotten enough, and you can see how this can take a while. I'm only halfway through, and keep in mind this is only for one kind of measure. This is only for the ERP oddballs. This isn't for heart rate. This isn't for the resting data. So you're going to end up needing to repeat this multiple times for the different kinds of measures, and then at the 2 different time points that we have. So this actually becomes a lot of work and time at the computer to make all this happen, not even counting the troubleshooting that I'm going to get into in a little bit. All right. So here, this looks like it's going to be problematic because I know that what happens here, it says select channels to be excluded from peak detection. It doesn't really matter which ones that we're gonna pick. But what you're gonna notice here is that it's pulling the channel names from just the first file, and this first person didn't have skin conductance. So we already know that this is going to be a problem. All right, now this stage is pretty important. Here we're going to be telling the program what information we want for the measure that we're eventually going to be using. So stated more plainly, we're going to get the component out, and we have to specify it. We have to specify that here. We could have done it in advance, but here. So we're going to add one component. I'll call this, I'm sorry, I'll just do that slower again. I'm doing add one component. I'm going to call it the LPP. I'm going to say that starts at 400 milliseconds and it goes to 1,000. Was that right? It should be like this, 24. No, that's right. Okay. All right, I'm going to say okay. I don't normally change these. We don't use latency and frequency things. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure what this option would do. This suggesting it's absolute value and this is most positive. I haven't really messed around with that much. I'm curious now. I'm going to look at it most positive. Okay. Oh, sorry. Once you've picked yours, you could add multiple. You could remove one. You could edit it. And we're just going to go ahead and hit next. Here it's showing you all the ones it's going to use. There are SIDs and CIDs already, so you don't need to do those. And that's going to come up next off. So you just press finish. You're going to save it. You're going to call it something. You're going to pick a spot. Let's put this under ERP files, and there should be a test folder or something like that. I'll put it under unorganized files. Okay. Let's call it practice. And this will take a little bit of time. And now what should happen is right after this, we're going to go back in to utilities. And you can see that right up here. We should be able to go right in there and open the file. We probably won't be able to. So we're going to go to utilities and customize peak output. Click on that and find the one that we just did. So I just sorted by date to get the practice spring one. This is pretty large. Let's see what happens. I can't believe it. It worked on the first try. Well, that's great. Doesn't always work that way. Glad it did today. So good. I'm not going to show troubleshooting just yet then. Or we'll see. We'll see. We'll see if it worked. So the SID is subject ID. You're going to put that there. The rest are going to go over here. So CID is for condition. And your animal happy. Component is for the LPP. So if we had done more, you'd see them pop up here. Channels. So we actually don't necessarily need this for all the channels. So I'm going to do clear all, and I'm just going to pick a couple that I think the LPP would be relevant for. So maybe, and even there, let's say I'll be broad. So I'll do CP1, CP5, P7, P3, PZ, PO3, O1. And we probably wouldn't necessarily use all of these, but might be interesting to look at these since it's one back ahead in the parietal areas. Okay, that looks pretty good. And here under measures, that's the next one, right here. And we don't want any of these. So now I understand. So peak amplitude, that was what I was checking the absolute and the most positive. Was instructions for this one, I believe. So I'm going to turn off peak latency. I don't particularly, you know what, let's just out of curiosity, we can keep that. Normally I wouldn't keep most of these, starting and stopping, I wouldn't keep. I wouldn't normally keep the standard deviation and amplitude. Normally I only keep the mean amplitude. That's really all that I really care about, but we can keep the other ones just for fun. I'll call this practice as well. And press OK. Now we should be able to go into where we were before. Well, I'm not sure if this is getting recorded or not. We'll see. Should be able to go into folder more files. I'm going to try that one more time. It made the file. I just don't know where it's saved. I didn't look carefully enough. Utilities, customize peak output. I'm going to do that all again really quickly. This time we'll just do OK, and then for channels, just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to get OK. Browse. I want to see where it went. OK. So should have gone in here. Why isn't it showing up? Ah, here it goes. I don't know why it didn't work last time. Like I said, sometimes there's just some odd things that can happen. So it makes an Excel file for you. It generates all these other things too that that you don't necessarily need. It used to be that this text file, this one that is merged, is what you wanted, but now they also make it in an Excel format, which is just better. So that's what this one looked like. This is that practice one. So here you can see that like 194, there's something weird about our data that we've acquired from this particular way of exporting that probably wouldn't have wanted to do. So if you look at these columns, it'll tell you what you're looking at. So this is the mean amplitude and this is the peak amplitude, and the peaks are all positive. So I think that's what's going on. Some of those are pretty high, and then here are the means. So this will be mean peak, and that's what it looks. All right, well that's great. I'm not going to save it. I want to try to find one that didn't work right. All right, I'm going to stop this video for here. So this is kind of how this is the best it can go. You pick your people, you go through the different windows, and everything comes out the way that you would like. And the steps are basically to use batch, peak and area measures, follow the different instructions, and then go to utilities and do customize peak output and follow the different questions, pick what you want and don't want. And that's that.